Google's event in New York today gave us a ton of new products and some new features that I don't think any of us expected. So let's go. Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and today I'm going to take the frustration out of automation by keeping you up to date with everything Google gave us and making sure you're ready for what's all coming out right away. The first device is the Nest Mini, and that's the first one I want to talk about. It's a $50 replacement for the Google Home Mini, but with some pretty significant improvements here. They have a brand new color, and that's really great and everything, and a wall mount. They don't have a 3.5 output jack, which is going to be a surprise not only to myself, but to a lot of people. Now, what they did include is better sound quality. They kind of said it was about double the bass or the lower end capability on the speaker, a third microphone, and some onboard processing capability that I think is the most important thing here. That onboard processing capability is going to help you handle lots of things that you do day to day. So the best example of that are timers. But if you have to go to the cloud, well, that's still going to take the same amount of time you're used to. But things like those timers are going to execute extremely quickly now with the new Nest Mini. We also saw some new security features demoed, and we saw a home intercom, so that is a big feature that a lot of people have been looking for here for a long time. We saw that demoed, and home phone, so they're kind of saying, hey, within this device now, you have a home security system, a home phone, and a home intercom that you can go ahead and utilize. So we'll see that device-to-device communication happen here, I think, very quickly, because this is released on October 22nd with pre-orders already available on Google's store. Now, with all this hardware capability is that sound detection, and I kind of said home security system. Well, it will pick up things like noise from your dog or noise from someone entering into your home. I think this is going to be very similar to what Amazon has given us with their Guard service, but it will also send you those notifications, and then it connects you to the local 911 or local emergency service immediately through the Google Home app. So this is a really integrated experience. And they're saying you don't even have to look up what the local 911 service number is. It will just do it for you. And something that I'm not totally clear on was actually, we saw new Nest Aware pricing where they kind of say it's $6 a month. It didn't matter how many cameras you have, and it's going to give you that 30-day event history, up to $12 a month for a 60-day history and 10-day 24/7 recording. And so they kind of really fixed that, but this was all integrated in the conversation around the Nest Mini and their new home security features. So I'm not totally clear if that's going to get integrated into that Nest Aware package and you're really going to need that. My hope is that it is not going to be part of that, and that notifications should come through from a speaker without a subscription service. So stay tuned for that, but there was also an update on some of the security and privacy and some of the components of the Works with Google Assistant program. And this was really great stuff because they talked about how each company would have to go through a security review with Google, or a privacy and a security review with Google to be a part of that program, and then to get access to data. So what they meant by that, so they use the example of the Nest thermostat data. If a company wants to utilize that to, say, trigger a event or a routine or automation, or they just want to use that data in order to provide you something, they have to meet Google's privacy and security standards. And I think this is really important stuff, not only because it means Google is trying to bring everyone up to a certain standard, but also because it means we'll get that automation functionality through the Google Home application. The Pixel 4 also came out, $799 in the US, and 3 colors. We saw the Oh So Orange, and of course black and white. And they also have a ton of new features and capabilities, notwithstanding the Soli chip that we've been talking about a little bit here. Now, Soli was demoed, and it did some additional things that I don't think well, I know I didn't expect it, but I'm betting a lot of people didn't expect the fact that as you go and pick up the device, it, number one, knows you're coming, it activates the screen, and then number two, it also prepares the device for face match. So it's really quick to look at it and have it face unlock the phone. So they really provided some of those intuitive user experiences with the Soli chip, not just swiping to have it change music, which is a nice idea, but I don't really care if I have to hit the button. I do care though, if my alarm's going off and I start to reach for the phone, that the volume dims or lowers a little bit. Now, everyone cares about how the camera is on these phones because, let's be honest, smartphones have brought us a whole new world in photography, and Google continues to push this. I was especially excited to see the new astrophotography capability within Night Sight, and that did not disappoint. Their other software-based features were very impressive as well, and really we got a great lecture about photography, and I learned a ton just sitting there and listening about it. The new dual exposure controls were very impressive and allowed you to create really unique shots with a smartphone, and I think that's really the point here, is they're moving into a much deeper level of crafting your photos, because they also did some work to make the viewfinder, or the actual picture on screen, look like what you were taking. They gave a great example with windows kind of being overexposed on the camera, but then properly taking the photo, because they take 9 frames in a burst and then kind of compose the photo after that. The telephoto lens was also a very impressive demonstration. I mean, where they took a shot of the San Francisco Bridge and then what they showed on the screen, I mean, that was very impressive as well. One additional thing I actually forgot to mention about Soli and the data around Soli, and this is, they kept hitting privacy and security and all of these things. So number one, the data is all processed locally on the device for that chip, and it is never shared. It never goes out of the device. So that's very important when we're talking about radar being on a device and measuring everything in your room. Google Assistant is now heavily embedded into Android, and it is becoming one of the primary control interfaces. And we saw another demo of the speed and capability of the new Google Assistant, and I literally cannot wait to get my hands on one of these devices and show you guys how this actually goes on. I've actually been in contact with a vendor who's probably going to provide me one. So we're going to try and get one. If it's not the Pixel 4, it'll be the 3A XL is what I'm being told, and we should get that new Google Assistant here on the channel to show you guys just what it can do. Now, they also showed within this new capability, and they embedded lots of the language model and lots of the Google Assistant capabilities onto the device as part of the operating system. And this is so important, again, for local control, speed, and accuracy again. So they showed this on-screen recorder, or voice recorder on screen. Actually, as the person was giving the demonstration, it was recording what they were saying, and then the search capability was really powerful, because you could actually search for things you said in your voice recordings instead of just searching the title of the voice recording. And all of that was done while the phone was in airplane mode, so nothing else was active. Now, with all of this, you're also getting the ability to delete Google Assistant data on the fly. So you can actually just ask your Google Assistant to forget the last thing you said. You can also ask it to forget everything from a day, and then they are still showing their privacy controls where we can manage it to delete on a 3-month or 18-month basis. The Pixel Buds were shown but won't come out until the spring of 2020. These were heavily engineered and very impressive, very small devices that they were showing very close to flush with your ear, actually, at $179 US. I think this is going to be a great option for a lot of people. The ability to wake up the Google Assistant, beamforming mics to hear really well what you're saying, and they did some work on making it not feel so so sealed into your ear, and then still managing a dynamic volume control actually in order to make sure you can still hear everything. So as you move into a noisy space, it's going to dynamically raise that volume so that you can hear what you want in your earbuds. They also had a 5-hour battery life, which is pretty impressive, and a 24-hour through the wireless charging case. Nest Wi-Fi is a thing, and I think there's more to these devices than Google talked about, really. So the router is $169, and that's called Nest Wi-Fi. And then you have the Nest Wi-Fi Point, which is $149 standalone, but when you buy a 2-pack, you get it for $269, and then when you buy a 3-pack, you get it for $349. But what Google did here is really interesting. Number one, the device itself looks pretty great, and I think they did do a pretty good job of making a router look like it could sit in any room in your home. There's a number of colors, and it has some nice rounded edges or rounded features to it, and I think it just looks pretty good. So what they're hoping to do is that you will locate this more centrally, because they increase the range by 25%. And what they're saying is 85% of American homes could work with just the router. And I think this is really true in a lot of cases. I think, we've been putting mesh Wi-Fi systems all throughout our homes and don't necessarily need it. Now, the Nest Wi-Fi Point has the Google Assistant on board. You can do things like pause Wi-Fi for specific people, and all of this is going to set up through the Google Home application. We also saw a number of partners being mentioned, again, similar to kind of the Nest Wi-Fi. We saw a little bit of mention of partners for local control, and for setting up actually inside the Google Home application. So this is some of the basis of why Thread is so important and why I've talked to you guys about Thread so many times. Not only are we going to see devices that Google is going to be making with partners that will be created specifically to be set up in the Google Home application. That's how they're going to make Thread really expand out in your home. So I think we're going to see a lot of options with devices come out here from Google and their partners, and it's all supposed to integrate with these Nest Wi-Fis that do have Thread on board but are not enabled. So that was one interesting piece. The other thing that I'm sure lots of you are waiting on is, what about Wi-Fi 6 or AX? Nope, it's not on there. So you can go ahead, hit that close button in disgust and close off the video, or you can hear what else I have to tell you. Now, on that note, they didn't release a new update for the Google Home, and I think the point of that, and this is what they didn't say, is the Nest Wi-Fi Point, I think, is intended to replace it. We'll have to see how good the speaker is and really what we're getting, but I get that sense that really that's the direction Google is headed, and they improved their speaker enough that they're trying to close the gap between these two devices. So I think that's the point, and the point is really to have the router in your home in the end. Now, the Pixelbook Go also came out, relatively expensive compared to kind of what I'm looking for from a laptop, but some great design features with the grip, the materials they're using on that device, how lightweight it is. They said 2 pounds for a device with a ton of battery life and a very thin 13 millimeters when closed. So really what they're looking for here is Chrome OS on the go, you're moving about, and a lot of great features still with the device. Another thing that was really interesting was how focused Google was on privacy, security, sustainability. So they talked about security and their Titan chip being integrated with all of their different devices. So this is a really important component of them kind of holding on to information. And of course, the additional controls with privacy, the Works with Google Assistant program really being nailed down from that security and privacy standpoint with those reviews with vendors. And I think all of this is really important stuff. They also talked about sustainability. So the new Nest Wi-Fi, they talked about 1 plastic bottle being used, those materials being used to create 2 Nest Minis. And this is very interesting stuff to me, and I think it's going to be very important in the future to ensure people buy their products. They talked about Stadia being a sustainable console option because there is no console to speak of. It's a controller and a screen, a number of different screens. Now, they also have released the Nest Hub Max in some more countries, so go check your country. It's here in Canada now, available for purchase on the Google Store. They've also released all of these products on that Google Store, and so you have a ton more that you can look at after this video. But if you want to go back and see some of these new features that were pre-released, we had a ton on our Google Home Updates video that was earlier this week. Go ahead, check that out. Otherwise, guys, don't hate, automate.